Right now.
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 Because it's time to write now.
Right now.
Right
Right
now.
now.
Right 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 now.
Because it's time to write now.
Right 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 now.
Because it's time.
All right, and we are live. Welcome to another daily late night writing sesh. I'm Kaufman, and today I'm working on the third draft, continuing on the third draft of The Last Scarecrow. My process, I read aloud as I am doing a line edit. And well, it's more like a minor line edit, so it's really a focus on improving style and fixing minor inconsistencies. So for me, draft 3 is a read aloud to fix style and inconsistencies. So this is my fastest draft. And yeah, so yesterday I wrapped up. I think I improved the most difficult of the chapters. So let's see. Feel free to come join along, whether you want to hang out, work with me, or just come and chill. All right, and as you can see, I have my screen all set up, and I'm already ready to go. Nope, wrong one, almost. Hey, what's up, Francisco? Welcome, 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 my friend. Hopefully the writing vibe is treating you well today. All right, so as you guys can see here, I have this bit for my story Bible, but I have my list. This is my draft 3 to-do list. Chapter 11 is what I just went through, so I fixed the timeline, and I fixed this, make that the first demon is responsible for the adverse weather. I did make the demon have red-blooded clouds appear. Let's see, I didn't. I don't. No, yeah, okay, I don't think I need this, actually. I don't think he needs to be responsible for the weather, per se. Basically, been responsible for many deaths. Okay, so we fix it, has to be that's connected to the Aura cast, Aura, yep, did this. Think through the mission of locating the graveyard of the last. So, and this is something I'm going back and forth on. I keep going back and forth on if the quest for him needs to be to locate the area, or if it needs to be. I'm trying to think of how specific to make this part of the quest. Yeah, so I have to kind of leave this one open because I'm not sure how I feel about this bit right yet. All right, and then foreshadow sun in the air. Going sunflower. All right, and this kind of goes into the next couple of chapters. All right, so that's my story Bible. So I'm going right along to chapter 12. I like chapter 11. I like almost want to go through it again, but I'm gonna let it breathe for a week, and then I'll come back to it. Chapter 11 is the one chapter that I was like bane of my existence right now. So we're gonna move right along to chapter 12 as we're getting into the act. Yeah, story Bibles are so helpful. I know I'll be launching the story Bible. I'll be uploading a story Bible video soonish once I can get caught up on video editing. I'll be uploading a video on how to make story Bibles soon. So at some point coming soon to the channel. There's definitely my belief that all writers should have a story Bible. Makes things so much easier. Okay, so, all right, so the last chapter was pretty intense. As Scarecrow, it was the first chapter where we were introduced to the antagonist, we were introduced to Scarecrow's mission, and we learned a history of the world. So Scarecrow has just been given a lot of information, which means that chapter 12 was a downtime chapter. Okay. I actually don't even remember how this chapter turned out. So, all right, let's see. Because I think this is a chapter I added in the last draft. Okay. Chapter 12, A City Forgotten. Scarecrow gazed upon the last robot's dark eye socket, devoid of life, light, or energy. Devoid of life. Scarecrow gazed upon the last robot's dark eye socket. That tiny, round, black hole of nothingness contrasted sharply against the robot's brilliant demeanor in his memories. Or were they dreams? He didn't know where he had just been, but it wasn't here. He didn't know. He felt himself. He grabbed himself to make sure that he was. He grabbed himself to make sure that he was really here this time. He didn't know where that place had been. He didn't know where that place had been, but it wasn't here. He tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve. He didn't understand why he felt the way he did. I don't think we need that. All he could do was stare. He tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve, but all he could do was stare into those cold, empty eyes. I feel like whatever had been driving him was gone, replaced with who knows. Nah, that actually works better as an ellipses. He tried wiping away the tears. He wiped away the tears. He tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve, but all he could do was stare into those cold, empty eyes and feel hopeless. Like whatever had been driving him was gone and replaced with who even knows. He tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve, but all he could do was stare into those cold, empty eyes and feel hopeless. Like whatever had been driving him was gone and replaced with who even knows. Demons. Images of the robot, the demon. Images of okay, that's it. He tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve, but all he could do he tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve, but all he could do was stare into those cold, empty eyes and feel hopeless. Like whatever had been driving him, feel hopeless. Empty eyes and feel hopeless. Like whatever had been driving him was gone and replaced with demons, with nothingness, with replaced with death, the demon, the first demon. That evil creature with death, evil, with death, the red blur, creator's blood, more death, nothingness. He shivered. Picking up the robotic head. Yeah, so okay, I think I like that better. I think that's a slightly better. He tried wiping it. Okay, so let's see. Scarecrow gazed upon the last robot's dark eye socket. That tiny round black hole of nothingness contrasted sharply against the robot's brilliant demeanor in his memories. That tiny round black hole of nothingness contrasted sharply against the robot's brilliant demeanor in his memories. Or were they dreams? He grabbed himself to make sure that it was really here this time. He didn't know where that place had been, but it wasn't here. We don't need that. He grabbed himself to make sure that he was really here this time. He tried wiping away the tears with his sleeve, but all he could do was stare into those cold, empty eyes and feel hopeless, like whatever had been driving him was gone and replaced with death. The red blur, creator's blood, more death, nothingness. He shivered. Picking up the robotic head, he murmured, I don't know anything about graveyards or magic or demons. I don't even know where or who I am. I'm just a scarecrow. He shook the cold, lifeless head, as if expecting an answer. Tiny metal pieces came loose and clattered to the floor. Tiny metal pieces came loose, clattering to the floor. He shook the cold, lifeless head as if expecting an answer. Tiny metal pieces came loose, clattering to the floor. I don't even know. I don't know anything about graveyards or magic. I don't know anything about graveyards or weapons or demons. I don't even know who I am. I don't even know who I am. I'm just a scarecrow. I'm just a scarecrow. He shook the cold, lifeless head as if expecting an answer. Tiny metal pieces came loose, clattering to the floor. Hey, what's up, Marcella? Neil, welcome, my friends. Nice, Marcella. I'm glad that you're getting the visualizations as part of it. It's always interesting with graphic novels. Graphic novels almost at times feel closer to a screenplay in a sense than a novel manuscript, because with graphic novels you have to have the script, you have to have the narration, or you have to have the dialogue, all the words that go in the story, and then you also have to have the graphics panel by panel. If you see and there's so many different ways to do it, but I know if you see like professional like graphic novels or professional like comics, they're generally like they'll usually do like a panel by panel. Sometimes they'll do it by what panels are on a page. Sometimes they'll do it by what words go in a panel, but it's always different for each style of graphic novel. I think really however the manuscript is framed is based on whatever works for you. Let's see. Picking up the robotic head, he murmured, I don't know anything about graveyards or weapons or demons. I don't even know who I am. I'm just a scarecrow. He shook the cold, lifeless head as if expecting an answer. Tiny metal pieces came loose, clattering to the floor. He sighed in frustration and turned to Mr. Crow. He sighed. Ugh. He sighed in frustration and turned to Mr. Crow. He groaned. He groaned in frustration and turned to Mr. Crow, who craned his neck in response. He groaned in frustration, turned to Mr. Crow, who craned his neck in response. Scarecrow groaned in frustration. Turned to Mr. Crow, who craned his neck in response. The crow stared at him. The crow stared at him silently. The crow stared at him, blinking rapidly. Before hopping from the empty vial, before hopping off the empty vial from which he was perched, and landing atop his arm. Atop Scarecrow's arm. Scarecrow groaned in frustration, turned to Mr. Crow, who craned his neck in response, and turned to Mr. Crow, the bird, And Scarecrow groaned in frustration and turned to Mr. Crow, who craned his neck in response. The crow stared at him, unblinking, rapidly. And this is why this preposition. Scarecrow groaned and turned to Mr. Crow, who blinked back at him, who craned his neck in response. And turned to Mr. Crow, who was. This is annoying because it's the prepositions and it can get too annoying. Do this. I just need better ways of phrasing this. Scarecrow groaned and turned to Mr. Crow. The bird stared at him. The bird stared at him, blinking tilted head, and blinking rapidly. Tilted head. The bird stared at him, tilted its head, and blinked rapidly, before hopping off the empty vial from which it was perched and landing atop his arm. Scarecrow groaned in frustration, turned to Mr. Crow. The bird stared at him, tilted its head, and blinked rapidly, before hopping off the empty vial from which it was perched and landing atop his arm. It looked back at Scarecrow with large gray and black eyes. It's a large gray and white. White and black. It looked back at Scarecrow with the white. Scarecrow groaned in frustration and turned to Mr. Crow. The bird still stared at him, tilted its head. I wonder if I can go back and forth between its, tilted its head. I wonder if I can go back and forth between its and him. I wonder if that might get confusing. Yeah. The bird stared at him, head tilted. The bird stared at him, head tilted, and blinked rapidly before hopping off the empty vial and landing atop his arm. With the large oval black and white eyes, a look of bird-like curiosity stared up at him. A look of bird-like curiosity peered up at him. Scarecrow groaned in frustration and turned to Mr. Crow. The bird stared at him, head tilted, and blinked rapidly before hopping off the empty vial and landing atop his arm. With the large, oval black and white eyes, a look of bird-like curiosity peered up at him. "Beware the eyes of hunger," Mr. Crow cawed. He returned his attention to the robot's head, opened his beak. Mr. Crow cawed. He turned his attention to the robot's head, opened his beak, and pecked at the eye. "Mr. Crow, that's not very nice. What if you—" The crow opened his beak wider and chomped down on the metal as it tore apart. The crow opened his beak wider and chomped down on the metal as it tore apart the head like tissue paper. As it tore apart a chunk of the crow opened his beak wider and chomped down on the metal as it tore apart a chunk of the robot's lifeless head. The robot's lifeless head like tissue paper. In one gulp, he ate a sizable portion of the metal. In one gulp, he ate a sizable portion of the metal head like it was nothing. The crow turned back to him. The crow looked back. A loose wire hanging from his beak, and the crow looked back. A loose wire hanging from his beak, as it whispered. The crow opened his beak wider and chomped on the metal as he tore apart a chunk of the robot's lifeless head like tissue paper. In one gulp, he ate a sizable portion of the metal head like it was nothing. The crow looked back, a loose wire hanging from his beak, as he whispered, "Beware the eyes of hunger." Scarecrow nodded wearily as he eyed the missing chunk of the last robot's remains. He set the head down carefully on the pile while caught in a staring contest with the crow. He set the head down carefully on the pile while caught up in a staring contest with the crow. He inadvertently rubbed his eye as Mr. Crow crawled up his arm, cawed, and rubbed his head against Scarecrow's shoulder, which forced an uncomfortable laugh. What type of animal had he agreed to help? Let's see, does that make sense? Scarecrow nodded wearily as he eyed the missing chunk of the last robot's remains. He set the head down carefully on the pile while caught up in a staring contest with the crow. He inadvertently rubbed his eye as Mr. Crow crawled up his arm, cawed, and rubbed his head. He inadvertently rubbed his eye as Mr. Crow crawled up his arm, cawed, and rubbed. He inadvertently rubbed his eye as Mr. Crow crawled up his arm, cawed, and rubbed his head. He inadvertently rubbed his eye, because this is Scarecrow, he inadvertently rubbed his eye as Mr. Crow crawled up his arm and cawed. After a moment of silence, after a brief moment of tension, the bird rubbed up against Scarecrow's shoulder, playfully, which forced an uncomfortable laugh in response. What type of animal had he agreed to help? Mr. Crow hopped to the ground and pecked at what remained of hand. The last robot told me his life story, I think. Looking down at the robot. Trying to piece together everything that had been shared with him, Scarecrow said. Trying to piece together everything that had been shared with him, Scarecrow said. The last robot told me his life story, I think. Robot long life. I saw you in a story. I saw you in a story. The crow repeated back. The crow spit back. Wait, you did? Trying to piece together everything that had been shared with him, Scarecrow said. The last robot told me his life story, I think. Robot long life. I saw you in a story. I saw you in a story. The crow spat back. Wait, you did? Wouldn't you like to know? Mr. Crow cawed in laughter between bites. Metal springs and pieces flung behind him in a frenzy. Scarecrow bent down. Wasn't he your friend and now you're eating him? Friend help friend, friend eat friend, friend dead friend. Mr. Crow is so Mr. Crow is so strange. Scarecrow gazed sullenly at the robot's remains. He sent you out to find help, didn't he? Mr. Crow paused and glanced up at him. The crow's eyes reflected sunlight from the nearby balcony. Another moment of silence passed before Mr. Crow paused and glanced up at him. The crow's eyes reflected sunlight from the nearby balcony. Another moment of silence passed before the bird neck craned. Asked, "Who sent for help, friend?" In his story, the last robot gave you quilt. In his story, the last robot gave you quilt. Startled, the crow spun in a circle and flew into the air with an immediate change of demeanor. Find quilt. Find quilt. Find the nest. Find the younglings. Save the younglings. He repeated this phrase rapidly as he flew toward the balcony. This time, however, Scarecrow was prepared. As he blocked the way and nodded to the door. This time, however, Scarecrow was prepared not to be separated again. Scarecrow was prepared not to be separated. Scarecrow was prepared. Actually, we can fix this. Scarecrow was prepared not to be separated so quickly. So he blocked the way and nodded to the door. Scarecrow was prepared not to be separated again. So he blocked the way and nodded to the door. Scarecrows don't fly. I don't think, anyway. Stairs. Mr. Crow nodded while repeating the same words, as Scarecrow followed him out of the room. He looked over his shoulder once more. Mr. Crow nodded while repeating the same words as Scarecrow followed out of the room. He looked over his shoulder once more at the last robot's remains. Scarecrow looked over his shoulder once more at the last robot's remains. He might not know what a robot was, but something about being the last one struck a chord. What if he were the last Scarecrow? What if he was the last Scarecrow? He shook off the shivers that ensued as he chased after Mr. Crow, prepared this time for his companion's strange flight pattern. Scarecrow jogged along. His long, lanky legs allowed him to take the steps 2 to 3 at a time, allowing for a nice, steady pace as they descended the red tower. Let's make this clear. Find quilt, find quilt, find quilt. He repeated this phrase rapidly as he flew toward the balcony. Scarecrows prepared not to be. Scarecrows don't fly. I think that is clear. I'm not sure if the quilt bit makes sense or not in this chapter. Chapter 12, does a quilt bit make sense? Okay. Scarecrow looked over his shoulder once more at the last robot's remains. He might not know what a robot was, but something about being the last one struck a chord. What if he was the last Scarecrow? He shook off the shivers that ensued as he chased after Mr. Crow. Prepared this time for his companion's flight pattern, Scarecrow jogged along. His long, lanky legs allowed him to take the steps 2 to 3 at a time, allowing for a nice, steady pace as they descended the red tower. Near ground level, Mr. Crow pivoted through one of the missing chunks of wall. Scarecrow followed, only having to hop a short distance to the ground. Through holes in the wall, Scarecrow witnessed through holes in the wall. Scarecrow witnessed witnessed the difference outside. Actually, let's go. Near ground level, Mr. Crow pivoted through a missing chunk of wall. Scarecrow followed, only having to hop a short distance to the ground. They were greeted by the fountain Let's change this. They were greeted by a changed world. They were greeted by a changed world. The sky without the domed orange barrier, they were greeted by a world changed. By a world changed. With the absence of the orange barrier, with the absence of the orange barrier, New City stood under attack by let's not go that. With the absence of the orange barrier, the sky above New City was dark and tumultuous. Clouds, dark gray clouds intermingled with dark gray clouds intermingled with black ones, all dripping with hues of red. Creating an unnatural, demonic feel. Dark gray clouds intermingled with black ones, all dripping with red hues, creating an unnatural, demonic feel. While nothing was raining from the sky, New City suddenly felt like a dark, abysmal. While nothing was raining from the sky, New City suddenly felt like a dark, abysmal place. Had the last robot really been protecting? Had the last robot somehow been responsible for the city's protection? Or the city's, or Scarecrow pushed himself forward before he could fall too far behind from Mr. Crow, who seemed unperturbed by it all, as if it were still a sunny day. They quickly approached the fountain down the road, and the mass of ruins spread out around them once more. They quickly approached the fountain down the road and the crossroads. Which had previously deterred Scarecrow, and the ruined crossroads, which had previously deterred Scarecrow. They quickly approached the fountain down the road and the ruined crossroads, which had previously deterred Scarecrow. As they approached the fountain, Scarecrow expected to be flung back by the bear, but As he suspected, it was gone. But as suspected, as expected, it was gone. As they approached the fountain, Scarecrow expected to be flung back by the bear, but as expected, it was gone. He glanced up at the sky. As they approached the fountain, Scarecrow expected to be flung back by the bear, but as expected, it was gone. He glanced up at the sky. Alright, I think we can do that. Alright, so near ground level, Mr. Crow pivoted through a missing chunk of wall. Scarecrow followed, only having to hop a short distance to the ground. They were greeted by a world changed. With the absence of the orange bearer, the sky above New City was dark and tumultuous. Dark gray clouds intermingled with black ones, all dripping with red hues, creating an unnatural, demonic feel. While nothing was raining from the sky, New City suddenly felt like a dark, abysmal place. Had the last robot somehow been responsible for the city's protection? Scarecrow pushed himself forward before he could fall too far behind Mr. Crow, who seemed unperturbed by it all, as if it were still a sunny day. They approached the fountain on the road and the ruined crossroads, which had previously deterred Scarecrow. Even the red bearer was gone. He glanced up at the sky, wearily. Mr. Crow flew around the fountain, veering off the path in a zig-zag direction toward another part of the ruined city. Scarecrow glanced at the fountain. We don't need that. Mr. Crow flew around the fountain, veering off the path in a zigzag direction toward another part of the ruined city. Scarecrow glanced at the fountain etchings. Atop on the top layer. Scarecrow glanced at the fountain etchings on the top layer, wondering if that had been the last robot, hand, or someone else. An image of New City an image of thousands of animals being obliterated by the nothingness crossed his mind. An image of thousands of animals being obliterated by the nothingness crossed his mind. He tripped over a piece of rubble, but managed to catch himself and keep pace with the crow. The entire population of animals, an image of New City being obliterated by the nothingness crossed his mind. An image of New City being obliterated by beams of light. By beams of light, the nothingness crossed his mind. He tripped over a piece of rubble, but managed to catch himself and keep pace with the crow. An entire population of animals wiped out. An entire population of animals. An entire animal. An entire civilization. Wiped out in the blink of an eye. An entire civilization wiped out in the blink of an eye. How was the first demon so powerful? First the creators, and then first the creators, and then the animals. And then first the creators, and then the animals. How was that creature so powerful? Scarecrow blinked as he hopped over a barely standing wall. Scarecrow blinked as he hopped over a teetering metal wall. Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, hello. Okay, good to see you awake at this time of the world. Hello, my friend Insomnia again, but that's okay. It's a constant companion at my age. Always welcome to have you. Okay, anytime you're dealing with your insomnia. Hey, what's up, Steph? Hope the writing's treating you well. Just popping in to give your stream a like and say happy writing. I am streaming now. This is the time to stream, right? The midnight hour, perfect time to stream. Marcella, maybe you could shorten that first sentence to Mr. Crow flew around the fountain, zigzagging off the path. Oh, that sounds better, Marcella. It's a good call. Mr. Crow flew around the fountain, zigzagging off the path. Oh, that's better. Zigzagging off the path toward another part of the ruined city. That sounds better, Marcella. Thanks for that. Scarecrow blinked as he hopped over a teetering metal wall. He glanced back at the wall as it fell over. At least he remembered what metal. At least he could recall what metal was now. How little and how far he had come. How little and how far he had come. Let's see. At least he could recall what metal was. At least he could now recall what metal was. At least he could now recall what metal was. At least he could now recall what most of the creators' materials was called. At least he could now recall more about the creators and their materials. At least he could now recall more. Scarecrow blinked as he hopped over a teetering metal wall. He glanced back at it as it fell. He glanced back at the wall as it fell over. At least he could now recall what metal was. Maybe he'd get his memories. At least he could now recall what metal was. At least At least he could now recall what metal was. Would this adventure ever? Would a long enough adventure help him? Would a long enough adventure help him remember all of his lost memories? Would a long enough adventure help him remember all of his lost memories? Mr. Crow flew through the frame of a large double window. Metal lay amongst the ashes of the structure's rubble. Metal lay amid the rubble of the structure. Mr. Crow flew through the frame of a large double window. Metal lay amid the rubble of the structure. Creators and animal species alike. Two civilizations extinct? Two civilizations had gone extinct. How many civilizations? Actually, let's go. How many civilizations had gone extinct since the first demon appeared? How many civilizations had gone extinct since the first demon's appearance? He stumbled to a halt. Scarecrow stumbled to a halt. Scarecrow stumbled to a halt as it dawned on him. If the first demon... is that... I'm pretty sure I'm using the first demon. The first demon. I'm pretty sure I'm doing the capitalized. Yes. The until the first demon resurfaced. The first demon. Scarecrow glanced. Yeah, I'm capitalizing the. Crap, I lost my place. I was like, dang it, where did I go? Alright, skipped ahead a couple chapters in accident. Okay, let's see where we're at. Mr. Crow flew through the frame of a large double window. Metal lay amid the rubble of the structure. How many civilizations had gone extinct since the first demon's appearance? Scarecrow stumbled to a halt as it dawned on him. If the first demon had survived two extinction events. If this first demon had survived. If the first demon had survived multiple extinctions, he must be. If the first demon had survived multiple extinctions, he must be centuries. How old must he be? He must be centuries old. Maybe a millennium even. Let's see, millennium is 1,000. How many years is a millennium? Yeah, 1,000. If the first demon had survived multiple extinctions, he must be centuries old. Maybe a millennium even. And now it's supposed to be his burden to stop this creature? He gulped, shook his head. Scarecrow gulped. He gulped, shook his head, and pulled his hat farther down his head reassuringly. He gulped, shivered, and pulled his hat farther down his head. And pulled the hat farther down his head reassuringly. As he raced through two more barely standing, as he raced through two more tottering, as he raced through two more as he raced through two more teetering ruins to catch up. A pole sticking out of a doorframe caught his sleeve as it tore a hole in his coat, and a handful of straw and stuffing seeped out. A pole sticking out of a doorframe caught his sleeve as it tore a hole in his coat, and a handful of straw and stuffing seeped out. Scarecrow groaned. How was he supposed to stop a creature of that magnitude when he could barely keep himself together? Any chance of straw or stuffing around here, Mr. Crow? Mr. Crow? Scarecrow realized his feathered companion was nowhere to be seen. He knocked on his head. There he was. He knocked on his head. He knocked on his own head. There he was, getting lost. There he was, spacing out again. There he was, getting lost. He knocked on his own head. There he was, spacing out again. Spacing out again. And boo! Ah! Scarecrow shrieked and stumbled back into a wooden bear, which splintered apart. The momentum carried him to the ground, smoke rising up around him. Mr. Crow's cawing laughter emanated from the ground nearby, where the bird rolled around in a fit of hysteria. Coughing, Scarecrow blew smoke out his face. Mr. Crow, that wasn't very nice. Haven't you ever heard of manners? Strawberry manners not, Mr. Crow retorted, as he hopped onto his talons and gazed around thoughtfully. After a moment, Scarecrow chuckled, and the quilt, the crow flew past him into the building. One of which was still standing, despite the new scarecrow-shaped hole in the wooden bear. The crow flew past him into the building. Let's just go. Mr. Crow flew past him. Mr. Crow flew past him into the building, one of which was still standing, despite the new scarecrow-shaped hole in the wooden bear. Scarecrow got to his feet. Awesome, Marcella. I always really appreciate it whenever you guys have good ideas like that. Scarecrow got to his feet as he assessed the rows of wooden barriers half his height attached to damaged wooden gates. The end of the structure held a pair of double doors, one of which was in pieces on the ground. Walking past one such gate, he whispered, "Stalls." He smiled. The more he saw, the more his vocabulary returned. Maybe continuing this adventure wouldn't be quite so bad after all. He stopped and snorted. Scarecrow realized he had already decided to make this journey because, well, how else would he remember who he was or what happened to the other scarecrows? Or Scarecrow realized he had already decided to make this journey because, well, how else would he remember who he was or what happened to the other scarecrows? Or he touched the gate as it collapsed to the floor and disintegrated into he touched the gate as it collapsed to the floor, disintegrating into pieces. Or what had become of this world he no longer remembered. As he walked further past the stalls, a strong odor hit him like a brick. As he walked further past the stalls, a strong odor hit him like a brick. The stench clung to his back area stronger. The stench clung to this area. The stench clung to this cramped area. Area strongly. The stench clung to this cramped area more firmly than anywhere else, causing him to cover his nose. What is that? Mr. Crow circled around the room, and suddenly Mr. Crow circled the room and nosedived into the last still standing stall in the back. Scarecrow approached, despite the smell wafting heavily like a plague. He turned the corner to find a dead animal. It lay on its side with 4 long legs, a deep brown frame, a mane, a short tail with a tuft of hair, and eyes that gazed nowhere with desperation. A lasting fear must have washed over this animal upon death. Scarecrow got to a knee, ignored the smell, and rested a hand upon its side. Scarecrow got to a knee, ignored the smell, and rested a hand upon its side. Judging from the lack of decomposition, the poor animal must have died recently. Must have passed recently. He felt like he should know what the animal was, but the name felt lost. He felt like he should know what the animal was, but the name felt lost to him. Did I say... So I haven't... So he remembers metals. He doesn't really remember what many animals are called, which I think what I can... I might have to reconsider. Chapter 12. Okay. He felt like he should know what the animal was, but the name felt lost to him. In a flurry of rubble, Mr. Crow flew out of the pile, tossing something in Scarecrow's face. In a flurry of rubble, Mr. Crow flew out of the pile, tossing something in Scarecrow's face. He fell back as a thick fabric flung around his head. It dropped to the floor, revealed to be Quilt. What? How did you end up here? Scarecrow cried enthusiastically. Quilt remained on the ground, motionless, lifeless, and inanimate. Quilt, are you all right? Scarecrow picked up the fabric and held it aloft, but was met with no response. He turned to Mr. Crow, who was perched. Mr. Crow, who was perched upon the shoulder of the dead animal. While traversing the city to find you, I encountered this very quilt, but it was alive and flying. The patterns and stitching are the same, but now it's simply lifeless. Scarecrow sighed. Even in the last robot story, Quilt was alive and well. The crow, Mr. Crow raised his beak. Mr. Crow raised his beak to peck at the dead animal, brought it down, and rubbed its face instead. Mr. Crow raised his beak to peck at the dead animal, brought it down, and rubbed his face against it. Rubbed his face against it instead. The motion felt surprisingly protective, like one a parental figure might take. The motion felt surprisingly protective. Death comes to us all, younglings, be it of the mind, without looking up. Mr. Crow. Without looking up. Without looking up, and in a deep, somber voice, Mr. Crow whispered, "Death comes to us all, younglings, be it of the mind, heart, or soul. Be it of the mind, the heart, or the soul. We may only beget death, this plague, with eyes." The crow's eyes held a subtle glow from the distant light's reflection. The crow's eyes held a subtle glow of reminiscence. The crow's eyes held a subtle glow of reminiscence. Scarecrow scratched his head. Was he more confused by the crow's change in demeanor or the words he spoke? Scarecrow scratched his head. Was he more confused by the crow's change in demeanor or the words he spoke? He felt like Mr. Crow was imparting some profound wisdom, but it was lost upon him. He raised Quilt to Mr. Crow. "Quilt, alive?" Mr. Crow sniffed the quilt. Quote lost. We are lost. Death is lost. The bird cawed. The bird cawed before taking flight to a circle around them. He continued on like this, repeating the same wording, as if lost in his own world once again. Scarecrow sighed as he thumped the red, green, and gold patches, some of which were frayed beyond repair. Scarecrow sighed as he thumbed the red, green, and gold patches, some of which were frayed, some of which were burned, were frayed, and were frayed, were burned and frayed, were charred and frayed. Looks like I'll have to save you too, Quilt. Somehow. He folded the quilt, add it to the list of things he did not know. Add it to the list of things he didn't know. Scarecrow glanced up at the sky. Scarecrow glanced up at the sky. Looks like I'll have to save you too, Quilt. Somehow. He folded the quilt, add it to the list of things he didn't know. Okay, and then this I can actually refer back to the robot's last words. Then we can take a direct quote as a reminder of the mission that the robot had imparted to him. What was the robot's last words? Find quilt. Find quilt. Find the graveyard. Stop the first demon. Yeah, I mean, I think I need to fix this. Yeah, I think, all right, I gotta fix that. Yeah, the graveyard of the last is good. I need to keep that. All right, where was I at? Dang it, I forgot to copy paste what I actually went to go find. Dang it. I went back and made an adjustment. I forgot to copy. Find the quilt. Find the graveyard. Stop the first demon. Find the quilt. Find the graveyard of the last. Stop the first demon. That's what I need. The last robot's final words were burned into his memory. He whispered. Muttering under his breath, he whispered, "Find quilt." Muttering under his breath, he whispered, "Find quilt. Find the graveyard of the last. Stop the first demon." As if repeating those words would somehow honor the last robot's memory. As if repeating those words would somehow honor the last robot's memory and make this task any easier. Muttering under his breath, he whispered, "Find quilt. Find the graveyard of the last. Stop. Save quilt. Find the graveyard of the last. Save quilt. Find quilt. Save quilt. Find the graveyard of the last. End the first. Stop the first demon. End the first demon." As if repeating those words would somehow honor the last robot's memory and make this task any easier. All right, got it. Let's see, 149. Got to go back and adjust. All right. All right, I'm almost at the end of the chapter. Add it to the list of things he didn't know. He folded the quilt. Add it to the list of things he didn't know. Scarecrow glanced up at the sky. Scarecrow glanced up at the strange, clouded sky. Despite its dreary, despite the ominous appearance. Despite the ominous appearance, the moon rose in the distance. Let's not capitalize. The moon rose in the distance. Despite the ominous appearance, the moon broke through the clouds. The moon broke through the clouds, offering a brief glimpse into a starry sky. Thinking about night brought on a yawn of disproportionate magnitude. He stretched his arms out wide. Recalling the harsh weather outside of New City, Scarecrow turned and said, Maybe we should rest before setting out. Who knows what's out there, Mr. Crow? Scarecrow looked around for Mr. Crow, who lay curled up in a ball near the shattered doorframe. Looks like he wasn't the only one who needed to rest. At least the smell wasn't quite so noticeable over here. The subtlety of death's smell seemed accurate for this world. He sat down near his feathery companion. Ever since waking up, everything about this world seemed off. The weather was astray, most life was gone, and what animals he had encountered so far were strange. Mr. Crow nibbled on a piece of wood. Mr. Crow nibbled on a piece of wood as he repositioned himself. Mr. Crow moved over. Mr. Crow moved. Mr. Crow changed positions just enough to nibble on a nearby piece of wood. Scarecrow looked down and felt his stomach. Scarecrow looked down and felt his stomach. Does that make sense? Who lay curled up in a ball near the shattered doorframe, nibbling on a piece of wood. We'll do that. He looked down and felt his stomach. It gurgled. He licked his lips, thinking of that delicious fruit he had tasted in the caves. Why hadn't he thought to grab more? He glanced at the crow. That's why. Oh well, live and learn. He had already forgiven Mr. Crow. There was no point living in the past. Looking down at his body reminded him of how much straw and stuffing he had lost. He sighed and found himself petting Mr. Crow, who welcomed the affection. Another problem. Another problem for another day. He rummaged in his coat pockets and fished out all the contents, laying them on his lap one at a time. The weightless egg, the frayed red beanie, and the translucent, it was just a ruby rock, and the translucent ruby rock. The weightless egg, the frayed red beanie, and the shimmering ruby rock. Out of the three items, the beanie only elicited a sense of sadness or maybe guilt. He rubbed his vine-wrapped twig fingers against the frayed fabric and pocketed it immediately. Scarecrow was far more intrigued by the egg. Even in one hand, it felt like holding a feather. Turning it over in his fingers to inspect the midnight blue etchings yielded no findings. They spiraled around the egg in such strange patterns that felt both spontaneous and intentional. He pressed it to his ear. Nothing. Holding it in the sunlight appeared to make the etchings glow subtly. But whether that was light or something else was beyond him. Thinking back to the lake made him certain that there was more to this egg. But just like everything else in this world, what did he know? He sighed. Maybe someone out there would know more. Feeling defeated, he repocketed the egg and the ruby and the shimmering rock for now. Leaning back against the wooden wall, he allowed himself just to be. The warmth Actually, let's give them... Leaning back against the wooden wall, he allowed himself just to be. The moon quickly dipped behind the clouds as it was replaced by the rising sun. The moon dipped behind the clouds as it was the moon dipped behind the clouds as the rising sun took its place. The sun's warmth felt soothing. It warmed his straw frame up. He opened his coat to warm his chest and stomach. The reddish-orange strands began to cast long shadows across the stable. Stable. Horse. That's what the animal was. How many more dead animals would they encounter along the way? How many were actually still alive in this world? How many were actually still alive in this world? And how many were actually still alive? Ever heard of the graveyard of the last? Find the nest, Mr. Crow murmured as he nuzzled his head into a scarecrow's chest. We need to find the graveyard. And what's a graveyard? Mr. Crow whispered. Mr. Crow cawed. Really? Mr. Crow, now we'll go, Mr. Crow. Scarecrow took a deep breath and rested his head against the lone plank. And rested his head against the wall. Against a lone plank. Something tells me you've been searching for some time. Rest now, O feathered one, he whispered back as he petted Mr. Crow reassuringly. As he petted the bird reassuringly. We are lost, Mr. Crow mumbled as he drifted off, leaving Scarecrow to watch the combating sun and moon. The combating sun and moon. Mr. Crow mumbled as he drifted off, leaving Scarecrow to watch the combating sun and moon. Leaving Scarecrow to watch the combating day-night sky. And wonder what journey, dangers, and mysteries lay ahead of him. All right. Does it feel this quote that makes sense? Should Scarecrow remember? I already trust this. Day or night in this chapter. Okay. Well, I feel I was like able to get this. So yeah, I mean, the chapter, now that I've gone through it, the chapter does exactly what it's intended to. I'm wondering if there might be a little bit of repetition somewhere in it, but I think it does achieve. It's kind of Scarecrow's like reaffirming. Basically, Scarecrow's reaffirming his journey with Mr. Crow. And we're kind of getting this little peaceful moment with Crow and Scarecrow, despite the chaos of what they've been going through. All right. So I think chapter 12 is good. I ask myself if there's a little bit of repetition, but I think it's fine. Okay. And let's see, did I get any draft 3 bits? All right, so I think that was actually a really good chapter. I feel like I got a good amount accomplished. Yeah, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. I feel like I was able to get a solid footing with that chapter revision. So I got to that next chapter. Once again, I think it achieves what it needs to. I'm glad that I added it. And yeah, this is chapter 12. So chapter 12, this is the first kind of like lull chapter that we've had in probably like 5-6 chapters, I would say. Yeah, because the last time the characters really had a lull was chapter 5. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so it's been 6 chapters since the characters kind of had a reprieve. So, which I think was good. I think it's exactly what was needed as they're about to embark on some craziness over the next couple chapters. Oh my goodness. Next chapter, we finally get to reintroduce everyone's favorite, the pixie. So thank you all for joining me. I'm glad we were able to get some good work in. Hopefully you're able to get some progress in on your storytelling as well. Thanks for joining for another third draft session as I am continuing to make some progress on The Last Scarecrow. I'll be back tomorrow with the Right Now Writers Group. And make sure that if you want feedback on your story, the next episode of the Story and Critique Show is this Saturday. So submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. That's all I got for you. Tap that like button. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write.
Right now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.